This video is based on the fact that I was playing Little Nightmares 2 and I thought, wow, I kinda like 3D open world games, so why not try and make something similar in Unity? And this is the attempt. Okay, so I started off with a 3D model of a random street that I just kind of planned out in my head. I textured it and added some lights just to make it a little bit more scenic, and I'm gonna try and import it into Unity to make it the sort of base of the little game I kind of want to try making, or just basically it's just gonna be a trial run. I started off by adding in a plane to make the sidewalk and just move that upwards and started dividing into little sections. And after that, I just kind of messed around with the bevel and inset faces tool to kind of make it more crooked. I used another plane to set up the three buildings and just divided it using loop cut to separate the buildings from one another. I also kind of started practicing making doors and trying to make them rotate properly, and what I found is that you can shift and right click and change the 3D cursor, and you can set the rotation to the 3D cursor to make it move properly. And it was just kind of fun messing around and learning that. So I tried making different versions that you can see, like double doors and single doors. After that, the next step was just to import into Unity, so I just imported it in and saw that the walls are transparent when it imported. So I tried re-importing it and realized that I probably need to go back into Blender and fix something when exporting the asset out. So what you have to do is turn on backface culling, and you can see what it's supposed to look like in Unity, and you have to change the normals. So I just selected everything and used Alt-N and just inverted the normals and flipped them, and it started showing up better. Once the walls were fixed, I exported it back into Unity and just re-uploaded and saw that the walls were intact now, but the texture was still missing. So I did fix that. I went back in and you just have to like unpack all the files and then make sure that they're all packed in. Just use both buttons, and when I re-imported it, it came back textured. The texture is a little wonky, so I might go more low poly next time, but I decided to just work with it and I scaled it up and just started setting it up more. After that, I added in a new empty object because I kind of want to make like a first person controller so you could kind of walk around the street and see it. I went ahead and adjusted the height to just kind of make it taller and more realistic in a sense, and then decided that I kind of want to have like a physical, tangible avatar too. So what I did was I just created an object in it and decided to use a cylinder for it. I also went ahead and moved the main camera under the FPS list and reset it so that it would be in the cylinder, and then just moved it up to where the head would be. So this is where the player is going to be looking out of. I went ahead and added a character controller component to FPS, and then for the main camera, I went ahead and made a script since I knew I had to program how the player looks through the lens and like how they move and stuff. I was a little lost since I didn't really know how to code in Unity, but I found some tutorials online that really helped. Also, I realized that I have to make a plane underneath the whole thing because whenever I ran the game, the character controller would like fall through the world. So I just set a plane underneath to make sure it wouldn't fall, because when you don't have it underneath, it kind of just does that. So I just made a new plane and just expanded it later to make sure the player could walk around. And here's the code, by the way. The logic of it was pretty familiar to me since I had done something similar in Scratch. It was like about saying like gravity, walk speed, like the looking speeds, and just moving like that. And it already lets you use WASD, the arrow keys, which is really nice. But yeah, it was just about like saying the numbers you wanted to, and then just making sure that you took care of every direction that you wanted the player to look in or walk in. But yeah, the tutorial I used did a lot about limits, so that way the player couldn't just like clip through the street while looking at something. So that way you can't like bend your neck back all the way or anything like that. However, it is possible to just walk off the plane and just fall into the void forever. But yeah, that was kind of it. And then I noticed like one of the walls was kind of wonky, like right there on the right end, the building at the right. You can see through the wall, so I went and fixed that. So normally to fix the normals, I would just flip it, but whenever I flipped it, it would just make the opposite side invisible. So I ended up just doing something else and just extending the wall next to it into it instead. because it just wasn't flipping right. But yeah, now it looks normal, and now we have a controllable character. I did notice something off about the movement. I couldn't look up or down despite the movement of my mouse, so I went back into the direction script and tried to see what the problem was. Turns out it was just one of the signs in front of my rotation X lines. So I fixed that, and now you can see you can look up and down. And I also decided I might as well change the skybox while I'm at it, and I found the component for it. It's not something you can add, but you have to change the component, the camera, and I just chose a dark one, and this is what it looks like.